Welcome back to Torn Apart, and to do something a little bit different today and maybe even weird, I decided to tell you about everything that I've been watching in the last few weeks. Mostly because during the summer break we tend to watch quite a lot of weird films that we missed, that came out a couple of months ago but we didn't really want to get into them, a couple of rewatches, a couple of TV shows. It's gonna be a mix of everything. These are the kind of videos that usually don't do really well on my channel, but you know what? I actually don't give a shit.
I don't even give a fuck about not giving a fuck, so I do give a fuck. Wait, what?
No! God, please, no! No!
So let's start by talking about a film that I really didn't want to watch because I knew that I was not gonna like it. And guess what? I didn't like it. I went in with incredibly low expectations and I still managed to be disappointed. I'm talking about the new Guy Ritchie project, which has the weirdest title ever. I'm gonna try to say it in one go. Let's try it. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I mean, this really feels like Inglourious Basterds if it was boring. Most of the dialogues are completely pointless. To be honest, most of the talking scenes in this film are completely pointless. This is kind of saved only a little bit by the action, and I really don't understand why people love this so much just because it was a true story. This feels like the type of movie where the true story is actually way more interesting than the actual film itself. Even the actors themselves, it didn't really feel like they were having such a good time, besides maybe the guy who's really muscly with glasses on. It was probably the only entertaining thing about this film. I think I gave it a 1.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, which is still not a disaster kind of rating, but definitely not something that I would recommend to anyone. Even as a Guy Ritchie film, it felt very predictable. It didn't really have any interesting plot twists, and I was sitting there being like, Guy Ritchie has kind of lost his spark. You know, he used to make incredibly fun films and now he's making this stuff. So, you know. Next we're gonna be talking about the hot topic of August, which is 100% Alien Romulus.
Are you sure you want to do this?
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Actually, you know what? Before I tell you what I think about it, I think it's important to tell you my official ranking of all the Alien films so that you can basically tell why I didn't enjoy this film as most people did, and if actually my own reading of the film is of any interest to you. Because of course, if you have a different ranking of mine, then we probably have different taste, or we overlook certain plot lines, certain things that don't go well within the Alien franchise. Having said that, of course, at the first place, it's the original Alien movie, which is kind of perfect, to be honest. And once you see it in 4K, unless of course you were born at the right time to see it at the cinema, you're sitting there being like, this is probably one of the most beautiful looking and sounding films that you've ever seen. At the second place, I put Aliens, of course, which is a really entertaining film, plus it really expands on the lore in interesting ways. After that, I put Alien Covenant, and actually I rewatched Prometheus and Alien Covenant right after Alien Romulus because I kind of wanted to have a little bit of context to remind myself what it felt like to watch contemporary Alien movies. I really like Covenant. I think it's one of the most disgusting Alien movies I've ever seen, as in the gore is absolutely insane. This really felt like Ridley Scott kind of like compromising, giving something that the fans wanted, that the studios wanted, and he still kept going with his Prometheus kind of universe and lore that he set up a couple of years before that, and the result was honestly excellent. Another incredible performance by Michael Fassbender as well, and this just looks beautiful. This is one of the main critiques I could have about the most recent Alien film, is that if it takes place on a spaceship, it's just gonna look not as good as many other science fiction films at the end of the day. Right after Alien Covenant, I put Prometheus, just because I think that when it comes to the lore of Alien, it's one of those films that has done a lot of interesting things. I think I gave it like a 3.5 out of 5 score on Letterboxd. It's still really not a perfect movie, especially when it comes to its pacing, but I still think that it's a really interesting alien movie which gets us into interesting places when it comes to the universe and the lore. After that, I put Alien Romulus, then I put Alien 3 and Alien Resurrections. These are my least favorite Alien movies, honestly. Like, I rewatched Alien 3 a couple of like months ago and it's still as bad, and it doesn't really feel like a David Fincher movie either, so it's kind of like the worst thing possible when you think about it. And Alien Resurrections is just disgusting. Like, it feels like a completely different movie. It feels like a standalone thing, but still kind of reusing the same actors and the same lore. Actually, if Alien Resurrections came out today, it would probably be perceived completely differently. It would be called a legacy sequel, but not as a compliment, as an insult.
Uh-oh. Stinky poop. Poopies. Funny poopies. La 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 la. Wee! Yay!
Having said that, so those are my ranking. Now we can actually go deep into Alien Romulus. First of all, I think that Alien Romulus is completely bogged down by its nostalgic vibes. It literally reuses certain quotes from the original films, like the "get away from her, you bitch" kind of thing, and it reuses certain characters that definitely didn't need to be resurrected, mostly because, well, they're dead, and it seems so insulting to bring them back using AI technology. Plus, the special effects are so incredibly bad, it's just a shame. Honestly, like, I feel like the cyborg role, it's always interesting to give it to someone who actually can put a performance into it. And you could really tell with David Johnson, who is playing Andy, and he has kind of a weird split personality when it comes to the way that he represents his character, and he's probably the best thing going on in this film. So this is why I'm like, why did they actually have to reuse AI technology to recreate and bring to life this character that we know from the original franchise? It was honestly took me out of the movie, and it made me hate it from almost an artistic level as well. If we go back to the nostalgic thing, I feel like the pacing of this film, I feel like the structure of this film, first of all, it kind of like resembles too much like certain types of video games, like Dead Space, for example, or even Alien Isolation, of course. This is kind of like exactly what I was expecting, like an adaptation of Alien Isolation. And the main problem I think I have with this film is that the main goal of the main characters is not actually to kill the aliens or stop the aliens or whatever, it's to get off the base. So they're trying to kind of like not get noticed by the alien, the xenomorphs, and all of the different like face hugger things, but their main goal is not actually to destroy them or to steal them or whatever. So there was just nothing original about this film, and that bothered me quite a lot. It was not as violent as many other Fede Alvarez movies, so that really bothered me once again. It had a really interesting performance by Kylie Spaney, who is having an incredible year of filmmaking. I did enjoy the third act. I feel like the third act is probably the perfect way of reminding us of Alien Resurrections, but doing something way more interesting, because it's kind of like relating to Prometheus, Alien Covenant, and everything that was established by Ridley Scott. I gave this film a 3 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, mostly because I think it's still a good film. I just think that when you put it in the context of the Alien franchise, it's really not giving us anything new. It is kind of acting as a perfect bridge in between the original Alien franchise and everything that was established with Prometheus and Alien Covenant. So that's the main part that I actually like about this film. But since it's a bridge film, it feels completely pointless at the end of the day, and I'm pretty sure that in a couple of years people will realize that as well.
We're good people, and good things happen to good people.
The next movie I wanted to talk about, it's a tiny indie movie starring Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and it's called Greedy People. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 score on Letterboxd. It could be perfectly summed up as a very mediocre, kind of like streaming film. I think in my review I actually said something along the lines of, it should be illegal to make straight-to-DVD movies in 2024, and I really hate wasting time. I feel like this film was really trying to kind of like emulate what the Coen brothers have created within the like comedy noir / dark comedy subgenre, but it just fails completely, mostly because it's incredibly predictable and you don't like most of these characters. And something you can say about the Coen brothers films without a doubt is that even the most evil people, you end up liking them because they make them look very pathetic, and that's something very human about us, in the way that we even connect with pathetic people even when they are stupid, even when they make mistakes. I'm not gonna tell you more because honestly I don't think that anyone should watch this. It's also very boring looking. It looks like a straight-to-DVD film as well. Honestly, I'm still wondering why they made this. Now let's go back into horror and talk about one of my favorite horror films of the year.
My dead wife is not haunting this house.
It came out quite a long time ago, maybe if you live in the States, but here in France we got it only now, and it's called Oddity. I gave it a 4 out of 5 score and I loved it. I loved its simplicity and I loved the performances, the tone as well. It was honestly one of the scariest horror movies I've seen this year, mostly because it was so simple. There are not that many jump scares. It relies a lot on creepy practical effects, and honestly it's just a really beautiful looking film. Of course, it's nothing like revolutionary when you look at the script, for example, but I even like it more just because they managed to do something so creative and something so impactful just with a very straightforward kind of revenge ghost story. And if you'd like to know what it is about, after the brutal murder of a twin sister, Darcy goes after those responsible by using haunted items as her tools for revenge. Next, we're gonna be talking about an Italian film that is just incredible. Honestly, this got a perfect score for me. This is the type of movie that everyone should watch this year, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's one of those films that ends up going to the Oscars at the end of the day, and it's called There Is Still Tomorrow. It takes place in Rome during the second half of the 1940s. Delia plays exclusively the roles of wife and mother, while her husband, Ivano, is the head of the family. When Delia receives a mysterious letter, the woman is able to imagine a better future. This is a very, very beautiful film. This is also a directorial debut. The actress and, to be honest, everyone is involved in this film give amazing performances. The cinematography is really, really beautiful. One thing that I found incredibly fascinating is how the domestic abuse is kind of like represented as a musical, as in like they start dancing with each other, but you can tell exactly what's going on without actually like reveling a bit too much on the pain, on the consequences, and showing us basically the violence itself. I found that very, very cool. I feel like there are not that many films that do that anymore. Basically try to portray violence against women in creative ways that don't really enhance the trauma, but still make you understand how it feels. It still gives you that kind of like emotional context at the end of the day. I don't want to reveal too much because the plot twist of this film is just very, very, very cool. It's a drama slash comedy. It's one of those Italian films that comes out every 5 years or so. If you like the Roma, for example, it has nothing to do with Italian cinema, but like the kind of vibes kind of match what Alfonso Cuarón did with Roma a couple of years ago. So there is a lot of drama, there are a lot of serious things going on, but at the same time you feel like you're immersing yourself in a completely different time, but there are certain things that still remain true today.
Ti verrò se in tempo.
Quando stai andando?
Put it in.
Because yes, this is a very feminist movie, but it's one of those feminist films that feels very real and naturalistic. It's not the kind of commercial feminism that we get nowadays, where you feel like you're being hit on the head with messages that we already know about. It's the kind of subtle feminism that you sit there and think about and create parallels with the real life. The last film I wanted to talk about today is called We Are Zombies. I gave it a 4 out of 5 score on Letterboxd, and this is one of those films that gives me hope about the fact that we can still make original zombie movies out there. I think it's a Canadian film if I'm not mistaken, and I really hope that we get more films like this. In case you would like to know what it is about, two siblings and their friend must save their grandmother from an evil corporation in a world where zombies coexist with humans. If you like films like Shaun of the Dead, if you like films like Warm Bodies, this is exactly right in that same kind of way. Of course, there is a lot of postmodern humor going on, incredible special effects and production design, and of course it gives us a very different spin to the zombie kind of subgenre, and it makes us ask the questions that we never thought we should ask ourselves, being like, what if zombies were actually not threatening us directly with violence, but just their presence, as if they were actually here and we didn't know what to do with them. Really interesting, because I feel like we can create a lot of parallels with the migrant crisis that we have going on in Europe, but also in the US. You can create parallels also with different minorities or different disabled communities. is this idea of having to include the people in a society that is made for patriarchal, like white, able-bodied people and having to live with that. It's super interesting, but of course this is my analysis. This kind of stuff actually doesn't really appear that much in the film. It's kind of all subtext and it's really cool. It's one of those political films that like hits you in the head a little bit, and it was really fun. Let's jump and talk about TV shows. I want to talk about two TV shows. One that I haven't finished yet because it came out just a couple of days ago. It's Terminator Zero. Which is a new anime version of the lore, the universe of the Terminator. I watched just a couple of episodes and for the time being, I'm not impressed. To be honest, when like you try to apply the anime treatment to a certain property, I'm like, you could do the weirdest things ever and you still give us something that it feels very predictable. It's a story once again of a Terminator going back in time, trying to kill someone, and a good guy going back in time, trying to prevent that. And I'm sitting there and being like, why don't you tell a different story? Honestly, we've done this so many times over and over again. It has more gore, maybe it has more nudity as well. So if you want those two things included in the Terminator universe, maybe you're gonna enjoy it. For the time being, I'm not. If we talk about another series that is anime as well, Rick and Morty the Anime, it just dropped out of nowhere. Honestly, like I found it on HBO Max without even realizing that it was out. I was planning to do a video about this show for so long, but they kept like putting the date further and further, and now it's out and nobody's talking about it because of course there was zero marketing. Same arguments for Terminator Zero. Like this, besides maybe the theme song, which is very anime in a fun way, the episodes that I've watched that have come out, I was sitting there being like, this is just kind of like Rick and Morty with a filter on, an anime filter on. And I was sitting there being like, this is such a wasted potential. They should have like basically told the story through an anime lens. They should have like changed the storytelling techniques. They should have like made it look like Rick and Morty, but also not at all. And I don't know, I just felt very bothered by it, and I'm not even excited to see more episodes because I'm sitting there being like, I don't want more Rick and Morty. I want a different, completely different reading of Rick and Morty. That's the only thing I'm interested in. I don't want extra episodes that look like an anime. It's just weird, right? And for the last show that I've seen in August as well, I've heard really good things about it, but not that many people have actually made YouTube videos about it, so I thought I would mention it.
Think about all the lives that you could save.
The only life I'm trying to save is yours.
And it's taking place in South London, and it's basically about certain people among the black community developing weird powers and how their lives start to interact, and there is this agency who is trying to basically to kidnap them and use their powers. We don't really know exactly what's going on. It's very comic booky, but at the same time it has some kind of naturalistic vibes, especially when it comes to trying to portray different aspects of the black community in South London, in England, and probably in contrast to other things that we've seen within the African American community, for example, in the United States. I liked most of it. I thought the effects were quite cool. I still felt that it was relying a little bit too much on cliches. I honestly thought that it was so preoccupied with the superpowers things that most of the characters didn't end up feeling that real, just because every single one of them was kind of like embodying a specific stereotype that we think of when we think of black people living in a big city. So I don't know. I would be actually incredibly interested to know what people from that community thought about the show, if they felt like represented. I would love to know that back in the comments, for example. Let me know. But me, from my perspective as a white person, I was in there being like, this doesn't feel real as much as it feels like a comic book that is not actually a comic book. So mixed bag. I still enjoyed it. I still thought there was a lot of interesting things going on, but I hope that the writing when it comes to the characters will improve a little bit in the next few seasons, so that we get a little bit more to look at when it comes to their inner lives, for example. And to end this video, let's talk about some of my rewatches. So this month I've been completely obsessed about action period dramas that came out in the early 2000s.
Yes, die! I have everything and you have nothing!
So I've rewatched Alexander, which was painful. way too long, way too long. Incredibly bad wigs as well. Good battles though. I rewatched King Arthur with Clive Owen, and I rewatched Troy as well, which I had to buy on Blu-ray because my DVD was just in such poor quality that I just couldn't watch it. Maybe it was not even 720p, just to tell you like how bad the definition was on that DVD. It's almost a crime that they used to sell that kind of shit. Anyways, I don't know why I've been obsessed with that. Maybe because Gladiator 2 is coming out and I'm kind of like grasping at any kind of movie within that genre, trying to see if anyone actually managed to capture the magic of Gladiator. And to be honest, they were well made. Like the costumes were really cool, the cinematography was really cool as well. King Arthur is a really good example of making a film that makes no historical sense but is still well made, and it doesn't really feel like a cash grab, which is something we can say about other films that we've talked on this channel as well. I think I'm gonna go deeper. I think I want to rewatch more films within these genres. If you have any recommendations, let me know down in the comments and I'll definitely rewatch them and maybe talk about them in the next episode of Everything I Watched. If you like this video, don't forget to come back on my channel, because here down at the bottom I'm gonna be putting other thumbnails of things that I've worked on that talk about the same kind of stuff that we talked about today. And here at the top I'm gonna be putting the topic of the next video that is gonna come out on this channel in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you noticed, but a couple of weeks have passed and I actually haven't released that many videos. This has mostly to do with the fact that I received yet another copyright strike on this channel. This is my second one, which means that if I get the third one, they will just delete this channel out of existence. So this means that I had to put in private a lot of my first few videos that I made which had copyright flags basically, because honestly I love this channel too much and I don't want it to die and I can't take the risk. I had to keep a couple of them, mostly the ones that worked quite well. So let's say that I've kept like 5% of the videos that had copyright flags on them, but that's why maybe a lot of videos have disappeared from my channel. It made me really sad, to be honest, that they can do that. That they don't even like send you an email like trying to explain it to you and giving you the option of deleting it yourself, getting and not getting maybe a copyright strike. But just the idea of like deleting it immediately and giving you a strike, it feels like a double punishment, and that really sucks. They actually deleted one of my favorite videos ever, and it was also one of the stupidest videos ever. It was my shitty tier list video of ranking all the cinematic gadgets that Batman had. Who was angry at that video? Like honestly, it was such a fun video to shoot, and I was actually planning to make a new one of those last week, but when I got the strike I was like, is it actually worth it? So I had a bit of an existential crisis, which made me not shoot any videos for this channel, and that really sucks because honestly I really love working here. Anyways, I hope that it's not gonna happen again, otherwise I will have to start from scratch and it will be so incredibly hard. It was my birthday a couple of days ago, so this is the official celebration video, and soon we'll be celebrating 4 years on this YouTube channel. It's coming very soon. It's in November. Don't forget to smash that like button, because every single time that you do that you make sure that we get even more historically inaccurate, weird looking period action dramas.
Can I count on you?
We love when people put on weird wigs. We love when we see like those incredible stars and celebrities pretending to live in the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, or whatever the fuck. At least it takes us out of our reality, which is becoming incredibly sad. I'm Patrick, and this is Torn Apart.
Back in the 90s, I was in a very famous TV show.
Da 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 da